Hey guys, Kari Larson here with the Yes Lifestyle, coming to you today to talk about stretching your hip flexor. So if you're a runner, you probably have a short, tight hip flexor and quad muscle, or if you're someone who happens to sit a lot for work all day, your hip flexors and your quad are probably tightened and shortened, and your glute muscles, your buttocks, is probably stretched and weak. And that combination can lead to low back injury and lack of support. So I'm going to give you 4 simple stretches today to help correct that. Thanks for joining me. All right, so I have 4 stretch options for you, and we're going to start on your mat, laying on your back, and you'll want either a rolled up towel, a rolled up blanket, maybe a bolster. I'm just using my foam roller because I have it and it's convenient. So use what you have. Lying on your back, you want your feet flat on the ground, knees bent, and you're gonna lift your hips up and slide whatever you're using as your prop under your hips. Not on your low back, but at the top and just under the top of your hip bones, okay? Bring your knees up one at a time and hug your knees into your chest. So you have a nice tucked pelvis, a nice curl in your low back. And once you get here, if you want to move the bolster a little further down, you can. Find where it's comfortable. And then what I want you to do is holding one knee in, keeping the pelvis tucked under so the pubic bone is pointing up towards you or the ceiling. Lengthen your other leg out and away from you. Keep hugging that knee in towards your chest, and you should feel stretched through the front of that lengthened leg. Now with all these stretches, you're going to want to try to hold them for about 45 seconds and breathe into it, really letting that muscle relax and release. And then of course you're going to want to do both sides. So gently bring that leg back in, keeping the pelvis tucked, hugging that knee in towards your chest, lengthening the opposite leg out and away from you. You might find one side is tighter than the other. That's perfectly normal. Hug that knee in and allow the front of that hip to open up. Again, make sure you're keeping that pelvis tilted in, a little scoop or curl of the low back as you reach that leg out and away from you. Breathing into that. And then bring that leg in. You can bring both feet down to the ground and remove your bolster. The next exercise we're actually going to roll over onto our stomach for. So this is more of a quad stretch, but we're going to get it into our hip flexors as well. So lying on your stomach, you're going to bend one knee and grab the foot with that hand. Now, if you're not flexible enough to do this, you can use a stretch strap around your foot. You can wrap a towel around the foot and pull the towel to get that foot close to your buttocks. So relaxing on the ground, holding that foot, think of lifting your knee up and away towards the wall behind you, and think of opening through the front of the hip. So you should feel this in your quad, but also start to get it into the hip flexor. Now what I want you to do is press your pubic bone down into the mat. That should increase the stretch in the front of that hip. So try to rest your head down, hold the foot, reach the knee towards the wall behind you, open through the front of the hip, and then think of pressing the pubic bone down into the mat. Almost like tucking your pelvis in again, pressing it towards the mat, and that should open through the front of that hip. Good. You'll release that leg down, grab the other foot in the opposite hand, again, pulling the foot towards your buttocks, opening through the front of the hip, reach the knee back towards the wall behind you, and then think of that pelvic tilt, pressing your pubic bone towards the mat and breathing into that stretch. That should open up through the front of your hip flexor and your quad as well. Breathing into that. That's our first 2 stretches. Release that foot down. We're going to come to kneeling next. All right, starting out kneeling for our next 2 exercises. You can go ahead and come to kneeling. Bring one foot forward and the other back, kind of at a 90-90 with your hips and your knees. This is called a triplanar stretch. So what we're gonna do is press the hips forward. What that does is it opens through the front of the hip and stretches that. Again, think of tilting your pelvis under to help deepen that stretch. Now, if you want to bring the stretch deeper and to get into the different planes of motion, bring that arm, the same arm as the leg that's behind you, as the hip flexor that we are stretching, and lengthen that up towards the ceiling. That's going to lengthen that whole chain, muscular chain on that side. Now to get into the third plane, if you want to make it even deeper, reach over the body and get a side bend, bending away from the hip that you're stretching, and breathe into that. Again, you're wanting to hold your stretches for about 30 to 45 seconds. Take a nice big inhale. On the exhale, you can bring the arm down and release the hip. You can add a little hamstring stretch with this by straightening that front leg, and that's going to stretch through the hamstring on the leg that's in front. Breathing into that, and you can bring it in. Now the fourth stretch is like the one we just did, but it's going to bring it a little deeper. You need a little more initial flexibility to do it. We're going to take the back leg and bring it straight out behind us, okay? So with it straight behind you, this is sometimes called a Spider-Man stretch. Your leg, your foot is driving back, your knee is driving forward. Again, that pelvic tilt, tilting under you a little bit to open up to the front of the hip flexor of the lengthened leg. So this is stretching the hip, and then you can press back again, straighten that leg, stretch the hamstring on the front leg. And this can become a dynamic stretch. So pressing, driving forward, pubic bone tilting under, getting that hip flexor to open, and then driving back, hamstring. Coming forward, hip flexor stretch, back into the hamstring. Again, forward, hip flexor stretch, and back to your hamstring. And then bring it back down. We're gonna get the other side. You're gonna switch legs. So again, starting with that triplanar stretch, kind of a 90-90 angle of the knees on both legs. Coming up, press that hip forward. Again, tilt that pelvis under to deepen that stretch. It also helps, think of engaging the glute on the side of the hip that you're stretching. The tightening muscles in the back signal the muscles in the front of the body to release and to lengthen. And again, getting into the triplanar, that same hand as the hip that's opening up comes up towards the ceiling to deepen that stretch. And if you're able to bring it and want to bring it even deeper, then bend away. Bending over the body, nice side bend, deepening that stretch even more. Again, breathing into it, holding it for about 30 to 45 seconds. Nice big inhale. On the exhale, you can bring the arm down and release that stretch. You can add the hamstring stretch again, hands on either side of your front foot. Lengthen, straighten that front leg out as much as you can, feeling that stretch to the front, the back side of the front leg. Breathing into that. And then we can go into the Spider-Man stretch. So again, that knee bends. We're gonna straighten out the back leg. The front knee is driving forward. The back foot is driving back. We are opening through the front of that hip. You're thinking of engaging the glute, tilting the pelvis under or the pubic bone forward to deepen that stretch, breathing into it. Might be a really tight stretch, do the best you can. And then again, we can make this one dynamic. We can go into a hamstring stretch by straightening the legs, and then back to Spider-Man, pressing the pubic forward. Again, hamstring and hip flexor, hamstring and hip flexor. One more time, get that hamstring and then that hip flexor. Pelvis is tucking under, knee driving forward, foot driving back. Nicely done. Those are the 4 stretches for your hip flexors that I have for you today. Again, my name is Kari Larson with the Yes Lifestyle. I want to thank you for joining me today. If you liked my video, please let me know by hitting the like button below and subscribe to my channel to see more great videos. Thanks again for joining me, and have a great day.